As we transition to the new normal, we have left others behind. We need to reimagine and redesign our educational system. With the collective effort of schools, sponsors, and TagPro's learning management system, and core of passionate teachers, we can deliver free education and champion the cause of our students. Together, we would be able to teach, inspire, and serve, because TagPros believes that education is a right all children deserve.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Celine, grade school teacher and EdTech coach from Xavier School, and I am back as your host for today. And welcome to Teachers Can Create, upskilling teachers as content creators and instructional materials designers. This webinar workshop series is brought to you by TagPros Children in partnership with TagPros Education, an up-and-coming online K-12 education marketplace where passion takes the lead in learning. This event is also made possible by the Department of Education International Cooperation Office, Teacher Education Network, and Next Series. So last Saturday, was a very eventful one. Although I was not here to host the session last Saturday, I was definitely tuning in through Facebook. And it was such a lively discussion. We had a panel discussion on why technology alone cannot solve educational problems. And we had our guests, Miss Maling Raisag, Mr. John Kelvin Regla, and Miss Grace Montiel of PBSI joining us last week. Okay, so last week we were also able to announce the winners of our Heroes of Learning Photography contest, as well as the winner of the iPad 8th Gen 32 gig Wi-Fi. So congratulations once more to all our winners, certainly very deserving individuals. I hope that you enjoy the prizes that you have received. And once again, thank you so much for being part of our contest in our events. So today we will be seeing a familiar face because Dr. Venus Alboruto will be joining us again this afternoon, and she will be discussing the strategic intervention materials. Now, before we get to our event and before we formally introduce our guests, let's have an attendance check first and check in on where our guests are coming in from and tuning in from. All right, so we have viewers from Iloilo. We have people from Cotabato, all right, Nueva Vizcaya, Leyte. We have people from Laguna, Binyan, from Manila. Okay, so all over the Philippines. I'm seeing some people from Antipolo, from Tarlac, okay, from Zamboanga, Dasmariñas. Okay, so definitely all over the place. We have a lot of people tuning in from Luzon, but we definitely have people from Visayas and Mindanao as well. I'm so glad that you've taken time off of your day this lovely Saturday to join us for our event. We have from Bulacan, from Angeles City, Ilocos Sur, all right, La Union. Welcome to everybody. Thank you so much for being here with us and tuning in. Don't forget to also tell your friends and your co-teachers or any other educators you know to join us. We're streaming on Facebook as well as on YouTube. Make sure to get them to join us so they can also learn along with you. Right, so once again, welcome to all of our participants today. So just a few reminders before we begin. Please make sure to practice responsible digital citizenship and refrain from sharing any personal information in the comments section. This would include any of your emails or contact numbers, so any private information. Please make sure to keep it away from our comment section for privacy purposes as well. Okay, let's also be civil to one another in the comments section. Let us respect our fellow teachers and educators. All right, another reminder, registering for the webinar workshop or just watching the webinar workshop does not make you eligible for an e-certificate. If you want to receive the e-certificate for our webinars, please make sure that you answer the evaluation forms that we will be posting at the end of every session. All right, so right now you will not see the evaluation form yet because we have not released it yet, and it will only be available once this workshop is done. So later on at the end of our session, we will be sending you the link to that particular evaluation. Okay, after we open the form, you only have a week to answer it before we close it on Friday at exactly 11:59 p.m. So make sure that after the session, you answer the evaluation promptly so that you can receive your e-certificate. Because after the deadline, no matter if you watch the webinar workshops or even if you registered for it, you cannot anymore answer the evaluation form after we close it. So we hope that you understand and remember this so that everybody can get their certificates, of course. All right, so I think we're ready to introduce our guest for today. So for our session today, we will be introducing our guest. She is the Education Program Supervisor of DepEd Surigao City, and she is also a finalist for the Global Teacher Prize. Everybody, let's welcome Dr. Venus Alboruto.
Magandang hapon po sa ating mga guro na ngayon po ay nakikinig dito sa ating Tag Pros episode. Ako po si Venus M. Alboruto from the Schools Division Office of Surigao City. Bago ko po simulan ang aking sharing, I'd like to thank Tag Pros children through my friend Sir Jim Toscano for this opportunity to share a material in which I am most passionate about, and this is the use of strategic intervention material. So this afternoon po, we will be talking about using SIM or strategic intervention material to improve student outcome in distance learning. So bago po ako naging Education Program Supervisor sa Schools Division Office ng Surigao City, I handled science subjects for 18 years. And with that 18 years of teaching experience, there are a lot of challenges that I have experienced. So before the pandemic. And what are these challenges? I believe all of us can relate, no? Lalo na yung nasa public school. Like one of the problems is the large class size. So in our school po, we have an average of 60 students in a class. So sobrang laki po. And sa laki po ng number ng students in a class, it is really hard to engage every one of them, no? Kasi minsan po ang nakikinig lang ay yung nasa front row, yung nasa likod po. Minsan mahirap po silang i-handle. The problem that I usually experience is students' inattention. Yan po. While the teacher is discussing in front, students are also talking or doing something sa kanila kang mga chair. So yan po ang isa sa mga problems that we experience in the classroom. Another is this one, low mastery of the concept. So sometimes Teachers get frustrated because no matter what strategy they apply, no matter what application of dramas inside the classroom, minsan po, meron po talagang failure. Then another problem is absenteeism. Yan po. Why do students absent from class? Because sometimes some of our students need to work to support their studies and sometimes to support their families. So kaya yan po ang isa sa mga problem. And if teachers do not do something, talaga pong kawawa po itong mga batang ito. So what about today? So during distance learning, ano po yung mga problems that we usually experience in the classroom? Yan po. Mula po ito sa isang Facebook na post, ano? So as you could see on the left side ng picture, ayan po, ang student ay parang siya na lang po yung manager at ang kanyang nanay at tatay ay busy sa pagsagot ng kanyang mga module. Ito naman po sa kabila, ganun din po, no? So andyan po ang mga nanay na siyang sumasagot ng module. So these are real problems that we meet in distance learning brought about by the new normal. Another problem is that some of our students cry or become stressed out or burned out because of the many activities that they do, especially on their modules. While others do not have their parents or any member of the family who could assist them in answering their module. So these are problems, real problems that teachers experience before and during the pandemic. And it is because of these problems that we experience that we need to do something. Sabi nga po, necessity is the mother of all creation. So this is where innovations come in. Whenever we experience problems, this is where we should apply innovations to be able to answer the problem. And one of the innovations that I apply in my class is the use of strategic intervention material, or SIM. So what is an SIM? So as I've said, it stands for strategic intervention material. So when we say strategic, it is something that is highly important to, or an integral part of a strategy or plan of action to achieve an objective. So yan po, strategic. When we say intervention, it is the act of intervening, especially a deliberate entry into a situation in order to influence events or prevent undesirable consequences. So when do we apply intervention? It is applied whenever we experience some difficulties or some problems in our teaching. Then material. It is material because it is something that is tangible or something that can be used in our classes. So therefore, ano po yung SIM? To sum up, SIM is a material that is carefully planned and especially designed to be able to address the learning difficulties and help students master the least learned competencies. So we have here the important words: carefully planned, especially designed, tsaka least learned competencies. So those are actually the important characteristics of an SIM. So maigi siyang pinagplanuhan upang malutas ang problema, especially yung mga least learned na competencies, to make sure that no one in our classes gets left behind. To make sure that every competency is mastered by our learners. So ano ba yung kaibahan ng SLM at ng SIM? So in distance learning, we are using learning modules. So ano ba yung pinag-iba ng module? The students. So focus on skills that is not mastered. Not mastered, I mean. Then when I say module, it contains different topics. So yung module po natin, iba't ibang topics ang inilagay dyan in one module. But when I say SIM, focus on the skill or the topic that is not mastered. Now, when we say SIM, it is intended for remedial class. So when somebody from our class did not master the lesson, it is where SIM is provided to the students. But when we say module, it is intended for regular distance learning engagement. So sa araw-araw po na ginawa ng Diyos, yan, module po ang kinakaharap ng ating mga learners na nasa modular distance learning modality. So yan. Then SIM has no pre-test and post-test. On the other hand, module has pre-test and post-test. So another difference between the two is that when we say SIM, it is more interactive. Activities provided therein are more interactive and fun. So hindi mababagot, no? Making sure na hindi mabobore ang bata using the SIM. On the other hand, in a module, it's less interactive and so we use the term heavier activities, meaning medyo mas mahirap at mas complicated ang activities ng module compared to an SIM. So ano ba yung parts ng strategic intervention material? So SIM or
All right. I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulties, which is all right. So while we are taking a look at that and addressing some of the concerns that we have with the video, let's just take a look at our comment section for now. So I think a lot of you, we have a lot of people tuning in right now. Looks like we have 212 viewers right now on Facebook. Okay, and then also, all right, a lot of people have already commented. Okay, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Okay, I think we're getting our video back on. All right, let's just give it a moment. This is really the struggle with technology nowadays. It's very unpredictable, but we do what we can to manage it. Right? So let's see. So we ended up with Miss Dr. Venus.
Magandang hapon po sa ating mga guro na ngayon po ay nakikinig dito sa ating Tag Pros episode. Ako po si Venus M. Alboruto from the Schools Division Office of Surigao City. Bago ko po simulan ang aking sharing, I'd like to thank Tag Pros Children through my friend Sir Jim Toscano for this opportunity to share a material in which I am most passionate about, and this is the use of strategic intervention material. So this afternoon po, we will be talking about using SIM or strategic intervention material to improve student outcome in distance learning. So, bago po ako naging Education Program Supervisor sa Schools Division Office ng Surigao City, I handled science subjects for 18 years. And with that 18 years of teaching experience, there are a lot of challenges that I have experienced. So before the pandemic. And what are these challenges? I believe all of us can relate, no? Lalo na yung nasa public school. Like one of the problems is the large class size. So in our school po, we have an average of 60 students in a class. So sobrang laki po. And sa laki po ng number ng students in a class, it is really hard to engage every one of them, no? Kasi minsan po, ang nakikinig lang ay yung nasa front row, yung nasa likod po. Minsan mahirap po silang i-handle. Another problem that I usually experience is students' inattention. Yan po. While the teacher is discussing in front, students are also talking or doing something sa kanila kang mga chair. So yan po ang isa sa mga problems that we experience in the classroom. Another is this one, low mastery of the concept. So sometimes teachers get frustrated because no matter what strategy they apply, no matter what application of dramas inside the classroom, minsan po, meron po talagang failure. Then another problem is absenteeism. Then po, why do students absent from class? Because sometimes some of our students need to work to support their studies and sometimes to support their families. So kaya yan po ang isa sa mga problem. And if teachers do not do something, talaga pong kawawa po itong mga batang ito. So what about today? So during distance learning, ano po yung mga problems that we usually experience in the classroom? Yan po, mula po ito sa isang Facebook na post, ano? So as you could see on the left side ng picture, ayan po, ang student ay parang siya na lang po yung manager at ang kanyang nanay at tatay ay busy sa pagsagot ng kanyang mga module. Ito naman po sa kabila, ganun din po, no? So andyan po ang mga nanay na siyang sumasagot ng module. So these are real problems that we meet in distance learning brought about by the new normal. Another problem is that some of our students cry or become stressed out or burned out because of the many activities that they do, especially on their modules. While others do not have their parents or any member of the family who could assist them in answering their module. So these are problems, real problems that teachers experience before and during the pandemic. And it is because of these problems that we experience that we need to do something. Sabi nga po, necessity is the mother of all creation. So this is where innovations come in. Whenever we experience problems, this is where we should apply innovations to be able to answer the problem. And one of the innovations that I apply in my class is the use of strategic intervention material, or SIM. So what is an SIM? So as I've said, it stands for strategic intervention material. So when we say strategic, it is something that is highly important to, or an integral part of a strategy or plan of action to achieve an objective. So yan po, strategic. When we say intervention, it is the act of intervening, especially a deliberate entry into a situation in order to influence events or prevent undesirable consequences. So when do we apply intervention? It is applied whenever we experience some difficulties or some problems in our teaching. Then material. It is material because it is something that is tangible or something that can be used in our classes. So therefore, ano po yung SIM? To sum up, SIM is a material that is carefully planned and especially designed to be able to address the learning difficulties and help students master the least learned competencies. So we have here the important words: carefully planned, especially designed, tsaka least learned competencies. So those are actually the important characteristics of an SIM. So maigi siyang pinagplanuhan upang malutas ang problema, especially yung mga least learned na competencies, to make sure that no one in our classes gets left behind. To make sure that every competency is mastered by our learners. So ano ba yung kaibahan ng SLM at ng SIM? So in distance learning, we are using self-learning modules. So ano ba yung pinag-iba ng module at ng strategic intervention material? Now, when we say SIM, it focuses on skills not mastered by the students. So focus on skills that is not mastered, I mean. Then when I say module, it contains different topics. So yung module po natin, iba't ibang topics ang inilagay dyan in one module. But when I say SIM, focus on the skill or the topic that is not mastered. Now, when we say SIM, it is intended for remedial class. So when somebody from our class did not master the lesson, it is where SIM is provided to the students. But when we say module, it is intended for regular distance learning engagement. So sa araw-araw po na ginawa ng Diyos, yan, module po ang kinakaharap ng ating mga learners na nasa modular distance learning modality. So yan. Then SIM has no pre-test and post-test. On the other hand, module has pre-test and post-test. So another difference between the two is that when we say SIM, it is more interactive. No? The activities provided therein are more interactive and fun. So hindi mababagot, no? Making sure na hindi mabobore ang bata using the SIM. On the other hand, in a module, it's less interactive and so we use the term heavier activities, meaning medyo mas mahirap at mas complicated ang activities ng module compared to an SIM. So ano ba yung parts ng strategic intervention material? So SIM or SIM has different parts called cards, di ba? We are very familiar with SIM cards, yung nilalagay natin sa ating mga cellphone. So while in SIM, we are using also SIM cards or specific parts of the SIM. ang tawag sa kanila cards. So there are 7 main parts of SIM. One is called title card. Second, guide card. Third, activity card. Fourth, assessment. Fifth, enrichment card. Sixth, reference card. And finally, the key card or the answer card. So those are the SIM cards or parts of SIM. So what is a title card? A title card contains the following information. Una, title of the material. So for example, in the SIM here, the title is Journey into the Cell. So that's the title. The year level it is intended for, so it's for grade 7. Then the name of the author, so yours truly. Then the name of the school or division or the region, kung regional siya na intended, no? So you have here the name of the school. So that's title card. Next to that is guide card. Guide card gives a preview of what students will learn from the material. It stimulates interest in the topic, presents the focus skills, which mentions the learning competency, and the subtasks. Then it also builds on prior knowledge or prior learning or prerequisite skills. It mentions the concrete outcome or products that the students are expected to demonstrate, cites briefly the activities, and challenges the learner in performing the tasks. So I'll be showing you an example of a guide card. So this is an example. On the first paragraph, all living things are made up of small individual units, okay, etc. So in that paragraph, we can see the prior knowledge, no, the prerequisite concept, no, or a short introduction of the topic about cell. Okay. On the second part here, you can find there the focus skills, no, or the subtasks or the major objectives of the material. Cite examples of things that contain cells, identify cell parts and their functions, create cell organelle analogies, and compare plant and animal cells. That is followed by what else? No? What else can be expected in the material? Ano pa yung ibang laman? So assessment cards and enrichment activities are also provided to ensure that optimum learning is achieved. And finally, it ends up with a challenge. It says, so fasten your seatbelt and get ready for the take-off. So yun po yung makikita natin sa guide card, di ba? It ends with challenges or it ends with a sort of motivation for the students to continue doing the tasks in the SIM or the material. Now, after the guide card, it is followed by activity cards. Activity cards contain simple activities which will help the students master the least learned skill or competency that the teacher identified beforehand. So take note, identified beforehand. What are our bases that this competency or this topic is not mastered? So after you give the module, di ba po, we give them summative test or chapter test. No, from the result of the chapter test, dun po natin makikita ang least mastered skill or least mastered competency. Okay? So yun po yung basis natin. Then, aside from that, it engages the students in hands-on and minds-on activities which may be done individually or by group. So individually or by group, but in this case, during the distance learning modality, individual talaga siya, no? Pero kung ano pa siya, during the regular face-to-face class, pwede siyang by group. Then it also says here, no, that the purpose of the tasks is to provide enough practice for the learner. So if you would ask, ilang activity ba dapat ang ilagay sa isang SIM? It actually depends on your competency, no? There is no limit. There is no minimum number or maximum number of activities as long as you give or you provide enough practice for the learner to master the competency that you identified beforehand. Now, here is the embedding principle. No? When making the activity card. Una, when making an activity card, you have to begin where your learners are. So that means that in designing your activity card, you have to consider the level, no, developmental level of your learners. Ano ba yung kaya nilang gawin? Ay, ano ba yung hindi nila kaya? So kailangan i-consider mo siya sa pag-craft ng yung activity card. Then adapt the activity to the learner style. Ano ba yung kanilang interest? Mahilig ba sila sa puzzle? Are they fond of drawing? Are they fond of reading comics? Are they fond of, what else? Are they fond of making posters or composing song or singing? So you have to adapt your activity to the style or interest of your learners. So here is an example activity card. So sabi dito sa subtask. So when you make your activity card, you have to go back to your objectives dahil dapat every activity card has relation with or has connection with your objectives and with your competencies. So for example, cite examples of things that contain cell. So we can see here on the right side, there are different pictures, no, composed of living and non-living things. Then it is paired with a worksheet wherein from this picture, the students will write the name of the object. Then they will simply check, ano ba siya, living ba siya or non-living? Meron ba siyang cell o walang cell? So with that, students can already connect or can already understand that pag ang object ay living thing, then it contains cells. So simple activity, but with that simple activity, students can learn the concept that living things are made up of cells. And after this activity, another example of activity that I made in my sim is comics, no? Comics and cell parts and their functions. This is a reading activity. Now, bakit comics? Why do I use comics as medium of instruction or medium of introducing the lesson? It is because young or old, no? Kahit tayo matatanda na, o may edad na hindi naman masyadong matanda, no? Kahit at our age, we are fond of reading comics. Ngayon din ay uso rin sa mga bata yung mga manga comics, ano pa ba? Basta, they are fond of reading comic materials. So that is why, when you introduce the lesson through comics, mas nakakainganyo siya sa mga bata and students will find it easier to understand the concept. So here, introducing the different parts of a cell through a journey of two characters in the comic strips. So yan. Then after that, after introducing the material, the parts of the cell through comics, it is already paired with an analogy. So after learning about the parts of the cell and their functions, they are now transferring it, no, to real life na mga situations. Like, si cell wall, ano ba ang object that we can compare to the function of cell wall? So meron ditong wall, no? Like si mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. Pwede siya nating i-compare sa dry cell, the powerhouse. Then si President Duterte, ano ba siya sa country? Siya ang control center. Therefore, siya yung nucleus. So it's an analogy. Now, they can transfer their learning from the comics to seeing the common things that they see, no, in everyday life. So meron ng transfer ng learning. So yan, ang gagawin nila since students are fond of hands-on na mga activities, so they will cut this one, no, the pictures, and then match it to the parts of the cell here. So it's a cut and paste activity. So those are just examples of activity cards, no? Cut and paste activity, reading. So depende, as we have said, you try to consider the level of your students and their interests when you craft your activity cards. Then after the activity cards, follow the assessment card. The assessment card, as the name suggests, contains the assessment of students' learning. So in here, you are going to gauge or to measure how much the students learned after doing the activities. No? Did they master already the concept? So this assessment card must be relevant still, no? Relevant to the objectives, and it may be of any type. Pwede siyang matching type, identification, multiple choice, puzzle, closed test, etc. So what's important here is they should be relevant to your objectives. And it has to measure what it is intended to measure. So here are examples of assessment cards. So on the first picture here, they are going to label the parts of the cell. In here, they are matching the parts of the cell with their function. So yun, related siya sa objectives. Then, it is followed by enrichment card. Enrichment card contains special activity which will further enrich the students' learning. Kaya nga sinasabing enrichment card. So here in the example, personal reflection. Write a one-stanza song or poem or an essay to express your idea on how you could take care of yourselves to ensure that they stay healthy. So ano pong nakikita natin dito? We are now integrating other subject area. No? You are now integrating health. You are now integrating values. You are now integrating English dahil medyo gagawa ka ng essay or poem. No? So nandiyan na. You're integrating not only values but other subject areas for the students to solidify their thinking or to make to form a concrete understanding of the concept. So yun po. Then finally, meron pong reference card. So it's the sixth part, hindi po siya last part. So reference card contains, so there are two references, no? Yung una, accurate websites or books as our reference. And the second part ng reference is summary of important concepts which the students may use for quick reference. So ito po yung halimbawa ng ating reference card. So katulad din po nun sa module, we provide reference, no? For further reading, and then also to recognize our sources. So kung ano po yung pictures na ginamit natin, kung ano po yung sites, books, no? So we have to cite it in our reference card. Then this is the second form, reference card, which includes the summary of important concepts of cell parts and their functions. So here, na-enumerate po dito ang different parts with the functions. Dahil yan po ang summary ng lesson. Then the last part, katulad din po ng ating mga module, meron din pong key card ang ating SIM or Strategic Intervention Material. So ano po yung nasa key card? Katulad po ng nasa module, it contains answer keys for all the activities, worksheets, and assessments. So kung ano po yung nasa activities and different worksheets and assessments, dapat po nandyan po makikita yung answer sa key card. In case of performance task, katulad po ng kanina, essay or pag-drawing po yung ating activity. So instead of the key answer key, you provide the rubrics for scoring. No? It must be presented in order in which they appear in the material. Katulad din po ng presentation ng ating key card or answer key sa ating mga module. However, hindi po siya inverted, no? Hindi po siya binaliktad. Same ano lang po rin siya. Same position lang po, no? Pero hindi po siya baliktad na gaya ng sa ating mga module. So ano po yung advantages ng paggamit ng SIM? So those are the parts, ano? Those are the parts of SIM. Now let's talk about the advantages of using SIMs. Bakit pa ba ako gagamit ng SIM? Gayong meron namang module. So here, these are actually pictures taken during the face-to-face, no? Before pa po ito the pandemic. So it helps the teacher address the needs of diverse learners. So here in the picture, you could see learners. Meron po akong mga learners with special education needs, pero they still enjoy using the SIM. No? Mga LSENS po sila. Then meron din po mga special classes. Yung from fast learners to learners with special education needs, pwede po siyang gamitan ng SIM. Pero po, kaya lang, no, ang ating focus po talaga is to address, no, yung mga least learned na competencies. Then it also makes learners become more engaged and motivated. Dahil po mga colorful yung ating SIM, meron po siyang hands-on and minds-on activities. So it makes learners more engaged and motivated to answer. Then you can also share it with your co-teachers who are non-majors of the subject. Lalo na ngayon, no, di ba po sa ating K-12, if you're a science major, a science teacher, 4 po na area ang tuturuan. You will teach biology, physics, you will teach earth science, and chemistry. So sometimes yung biology, mahirap magturo ng chemistry or physics. Kaya po, in your school, for example, to help your co-teachers, you can share your strategic intervention materials with them. Then also, students become independent learners. So kaya nilang sagutin dahil specially designed ang SIM, specially crafted according to their interests and level. So students will be interested to answer, which later on helps them to become independent learners. Aside from that, students can enjoy doing hands-on activities, which, ito po, kagaya rin po ng kahit nasa bahay po sila, sa distance learning, no? While learning at their home, kaya po nilang sagutin yung mga activities on their own. Dahil po, these are designed for their own level. So ano po yung mga tips? Paano po tayo gagawa ng effective na mga SIM? So these are some tips. Una, make it conversational and interactive. When I say conversational, let your materials connect and talk to your learners. Like for example, in the journey into the cell, gagamitin mo po ay pronoun na you, no? So as if the material is talking to the learner. So in this material, you are expected to, yung ganun, gagamitan mo siya ng personal pronoun, second personal pronoun. No? To make it appear na ang material po ay nakikipag-usap sa learners. Then make it interactive. No? Na maraming gagawin ng bata na according to his own interest din, his or her interest, but the learner can interact with the activities and with your material. So make it interesting, meaning, so according to their interest na mga po, no? Dahil kung mahilig po silang mag-drawing, you provide activities for drawing. Kung mahilig po silang magbasa ng comics, you provide activities for that. Or kung mahilig sila sa puzzle, o 4 picks 1 word ba yan? O word puzzle, crossword puzzle, or word search. So make it interesting para hindi po mabore yung learners. Then provide simple and clear information and instruction. So dahil nga po siya intended for remedial instruction, make your information simpler and clearer. No? At yung instruction mo po, dapat klaro, no? Paano ba nila sasagutin yung kanilang activity? Kung meron po diyang cut and paste na activity, dapat po mag-provide ng worksheet kung saan dun sila sasagot. Okay? Dahil po, SIM is a standalone material. So when you give the activity, dun na rin sila mismo sasagot, dun sila, kung cut and paste yan, dun nila ididikit yung kanilang mga sagot. Okay, consider the learner's developmental level, then make it reproducible. It is not a student project, so kaya discourage po ang paggamit ng mga glitters, no? Baka po gusto natin para maging attractive, lalagyan natin siya ng mga glitters or pop-up na mga images, which is not necessary na po. Para po siya mas madaling i-reproduce, dapat po yung colors na gagamitin natin ay hindi po siya magiging dark. Kahit po i-black and white natin siya ng pag-reproduce, hindi po siya pangit tingnan. Okay, so yung mga light colors lang po ang gamitin natin. And then, wag na pong gumamit ng mga pop-up or glitters. So, how to use SIMs to improve student outcomes? So, papaano ba natin gagamitin? Child can't learn the way we teach. Maybe we should teach the way they learn. So, kung ilalagay po natin sa context natin, if they did not master the competencies using the modules, then provide them with strategic intervention materials as their supplementary learning materials. Kasi po, mas lighter and mas interesting yung activities na nasa SIM kaysa sa heavy activities na nasa module. Okay, ito po, never underestimate the value of sharing. Like, for example, in your school, kung maraming science teachers, pwede nyo pong paghati-hatian yung mga competencies. Like for example, sa science, you can divide among yourselves the competencies for that particular quarter. Then pwede po kayong mag-put up ng isang repository. Pwede po siyang online or offline na repository so that whenever a teacher needs to use the material, madali po siyang maka-access. Pero dapat po, pag ginamit natin yung material ng iba, ng ating co-teacher, we have to recognize the source po. Diba po? So, never underestimate the value of sharing because it is through sharing that we will all thrive in this new normal and that we will be able to promote quality education that our learners deserve. So, what I was actually showing you a while back are SIMATAR na po siya, no? Bakit po siya SIMATAR? It stands for Strategic Intervention Material in Teaching with Augmented Reality. So, ano na po siya? Augmented reality, meaning when we use the app SIMATAR, yun pong mga SIM, lumalabas po siya as 3D images. So, DOST has made mobile application called SIMATAR. Ito po yung mga SIM na isinulat namin ng aming team sa Surigao City National High School. So as of now, meron lang po siyang 5 titles. So later on po siguro baka gumawa pa po ng maraming SIMATAR ang DOST. Okay, so ito po yung mga available as of the moment. A Storm is Born, Understanding Formation of Typhoon, Break on the Move, it's about earthquakes and faults, Journey into the Cell, The Amazing Visitors of Planet Earth, and What's the Matter? So para po sa mga science teachers, pwede nyo po itong gamitin sa inyong mga klase. So ano po ba yung appearance ng SIMATAR? Yan po, no? When they use the application SIMATAR, When it is augmented, it will show 3D simulation of the drawings. Like for example, ito, from the normal picture, they will be viewed as 3D objects. So makikita talaga ng bata ano ba yung itsura ng meteor. So ganyan pala siya. Ano ba yung itsura ng cell sa loob ng cell? So 3D na po yung appearance. Yung typhoon, ano ba yung itsura ng eye of the typhoon? So it's already 3D. Kaya mas interesting po, no, para sa mga bata. It's more interactive, engaging, and immerses student into virtual simulations. Saan po siya pwedeng makuha? Actually, it can be downloaded from App Store. As of the moment, DOST is still developing the Android version of this app. So sa ngayon, App Store pa lang po pwedeng ma-download. Okay, so that ends my presentation po on strategic intervention material for improving the student outcome. Maraming salamat po for listening. And I think I am now ready for your questions and clarification.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Venus, for sharing your expertise with us about the Sims. Okay, so let's give her a big round of applause. All right, now I'm sure a lot of you have questions for our speaker. In fact, I saw a couple of them already while we were having that session. So let's welcome back to our virtual stage Dr. Venus Alboruto to answer some of the questions that you've posted. So I'll be going through the questions that were sent during the session, and then later on, if we still have some time, we can open the floor for further questions. So welcome back, Dr. Venus. We have a couple questions here from our audience. We have one from Aziel Ruth Paklevar. She asks, can we have a downloadable sim for each subject, or where can we get these materials?
Okay, good afternoon po. Thank you po, Ma'am Aziel, for the question. Actually, na-present ko po kanina yung mga Simatar po or improved version ng SIM. Pwede po siyang ma-download from App Store. When we search naman po SIM on Google, marami naman pong lalabas dyan ng mga example ng mga SIM na ginawa ng mga teachers. So, just search sa Google, meron po tayong pwedeng ma-download dyan ng mga materials.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Venus. So, Dr. Venus, you're saying that even online, if teachers just Google, they can easily find these materials.
Yes po, marami pong pwedeng ma-download. Pero pwede rin po yung mga Simatar po na na-mention ko kanina, available po siya sa App Store din.
Okay. Actually, Dr. Venus, I do have a follow-up question about Simatar. Is Simatar free to use for our teachers and students?
Yes po, free po. Pwede po siyang ma-download for free sa App Store.
Okay.
Nagde-develop pa po ngayon ng Android version.
Okay, so that's good to know. Is Simatar po ba, by the way, is it something that they need to access online or can they use it offline also?
When they install it on their gadget po, pwede na po siya magamit offline.
Okay. So I think that's good to know for a lot of our teachers so that we know that once our students download this particular material, they don't have to stay connected just to be able to access it, but they can actually run it offline na. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Venus. We have another question here from Mary Grace Gonzalez. Ano po yung format na gagamitin? Portrait po ba or landscape or booklet type po?
Actually po sa SIM, there is no prescribed format as to the position of kung portrait o landscape. Depende na po yun sa teacher. Tsaka depende din po yun sa type ng learners natin. Kasi usually po, pag kinder to grade 3, kailangan malalaki yung letters. Kaya minsan dapat naka full page siya na naka portrait. Pero kung mga ano na po ng mga learners like higher levels na, pwede naman po siyang i-booklet type. So as to the format, wala naman po siyang prescribed talaga na format as long as the parts are there.
Okay, so it depends po on what the students are comfortable with, I guess, and also the teachers know what they decide to do with it. So no prescribed format. I think we have to really base it on how our students will be able to use it, kung ano yung madali sa kanila. Yes. So, by the way, Dr. Venus, since you mentioned yung different levels that the Sims can be used in, is there a particular grade level where Sims can be used, or is it for any grade level at all?
It can be used po for any grade level and for any subject po. Kasi intervention material po siya. As long as meron pong least learned na mga competency, pwede po siyang gawa ng SIM.
Okay. So thank you, Dr. Venus. Good to know. We have more questions as well. So this one is from Vincent Morsha. He asks, why don't we use SIM in teaching nowadays instead of just the modules? If Sims can make students learn better, why don't we use that instead of the regular modules?
Kasi yung atin naman pong learning modality ay modular, no? So kaya module po yung ating gamit. Pero dapat po nating intindihin na ang SIM ay intervention material. So binibigay po siya once po meron pong mga least learned na mga competencies. In our case po, halimbawa sa school namin, even before the pandemic po, ginawa na po namin ng mga SIM lahat ng competencies sa grade 8 kasi grade 8 po ang tinuturuan ko dati. So lahat po ng mga least learned competency, meron na po kaming SIM na ready na magagamit ng mga learners in case na meron po talagang mahihirap na mga lessons para sa kanila.
Okay. So what I'm getting here is that yung modules po, yun talaga yung ginagamit natin. That's what we actually use for the lessons. And then the Sims are just and then the Sims are just
para supplementary.
Yes. So it's only for yung situations kapag may students na nahihirapan or having difficulty with a particular topic.
Opo.
Okay.
So parang supplementary or additional siya na material para mas makatulong na maintindihan yung lesson.
All right. Okay. So thank you for that clarification, Dr. Venus. Since you mentioned yung intervention strategies as well, and we differentiated yung modules from the intervention strategies, there's actually a question here from Gloria Ignacio Bayo, and she asks, what are the examples of intervention strategies?
Ang binibigay po natin dito, halimbawa in this session, is strategic intervention material. So, yung SIM po is actually already an intervention kung saan after giving the test to our learners and then we found out na meron pong mga failure, no, sa mga bata, meron pong hindi naka-master sa lesson, then we give them an intervention in a form of the SIM o the material called Strategic Intervention Material. So yan po ay isa lang sa mga intervention. Actually po wala naman pong talagang sinasabi natin one size fits all na intervention na pwede natong i-prescribe para sa mga learners dahil depende naman po yan sa type ng ating learner, depende din po sa sitwasyon, no, na kung ano po yung problem or yung context ng ating learners, then yun po ang doon po natin i-base yung ating intervention para sa kanila.
Okay. So yung Sims mismo, the Sims themselves are intervention materials, and then it's just one of the many ways that we can help our students, right? It's not a one size fits all, like you said, Dr. Venus. Because our students have different needs, they have different backgrounds then, and maybe they have different difficulties or levels of understanding. That's where we base our intervention. So the Sims are just one way of doing that, but there are several more ways that we can do it. All right, thank you. Okay, there is one comment here from Gina Odango, not so much a question, but more of an observation, I think, or a comment. She says, SIM may be an added task for a teacher to prepare, but it would benefit the learners, even those who are intellectually challenged. What are your thoughts on that, Dr. Venus?
Ano po yun?
Sabi po ni Gina Odango.
Sorry po.
Yung SIM is an added task for the teacher. It's something that they have to prepare also. So it's an added task for them to do, but it will benefit the learners, especially those who are intellectually challenged. So any thoughts on that particular comment or thought?
Opo, I agree po na talagang additional po siya na work ng teacher, ano? Pero once na love naman po natin yung ating work, siguro hindi naman po siya matitreat natin as burden, no? Kasi para po siya talaga sa learner. So, kung pwede po nating, gaya po ng suggestion ko kanina, kung pwede po nating ma-divide yung competencies among ourselves in our school. For example, meron tayong 10 science teachers. Then, paghati-hatian natin yung mga mahihirap na mga competencies para mapaghandaan na agad ng mga SIM. Gaya po ng ginawa namin sa aming school. Lahat po ng competency sa science, ginawa namin ng SIM para madali na po siyang mahugot yung material mismo kapag nahihirapan yung mga bata. So, sa ibang school din, pwede din po nilang gawin yon na i-distribute nila yung competency among themselves, gawa nila ng intervention material. Kasi sabi nga, never underestimate the value of sharing. So kapag pinagtulungan natin yung paggawa nun, so hindi naman po siya heavy na po siguro.
Mm-mm. So basically, it's better po na prepared na tayo no in advance in case there are students who have difficulties instead of yung we just prepare it kapag meron na. So it's better to always have it ready and on hand. So that's a good suggestion, Dr. Venus. Thank you. Before siguro the start of the school year, no, we prepare our intervention materials for the different topics just in case, and then we delegate it to our teachers para hindi ganun ka-heavy yung load on the teachers. Okay, thank you. All right, we have more questions. We have one from Mr. Bernardo Lopez. He asks, karamihan po ng goals ng SIM ay meron din ang Moodle and online learning resources and simple learning activity sheets. Ano po ang pinaka-bentahe o benefit ng SIM? Baka kasi redundant or same ng goals lang mararating po. So what are the main benefits of using SIM if the goals are also in the modules or it's the same as some of the learning resources we have?
Ang pinaka-goal, pinaka-bentahe ng SIM, actually pare-parehas lang naman din siguro, no? Kaya lang iba lang yung format, no, ng talaga ng SIM. Kapag sinabi nating SIM, well-structured ang kanyang parts. So meron siyang 7 parts. So yun, at saka bawat activity na nandiyan ay talagang related sa goal of providing enough practice for the learner. So actually, isa lang po yung SIM, gaya po yung sabi ko kanina, isa lang yung SIM sa pwede nating intervention, no, para sa ating learners. Although yes, marami pong mga materials na pwede nating kunin from Moodle and other online resources. So ito lang po talaga ay, ang SIM lang ay talagang nakafocus ka sa specific skill na hindi na master talaga ng learner. So yun po yung talagang ginawan mo ng well-planned activities para ma-target mo yung specific na competency na yan.
Okay, so although pareho siya ng goals, it's possible that it shares some goals with the regular modules, right? Dito po sa SIM is you're isolating, kumbaga parang hinihiwalay mo yung particular skill that the student had difficulty with so that they can work on it. So although it may have the same goals as the modules, it's a better way of presenting it para mas maintindihan ni student. Okay. All right. There are still more questions. Are you still good, Dr. Venus? You're still good to answer?
Okay po.
Okay. So we have here from, let's see. Okay, we have one from Adjarn Rayman. He asks, if there are advantages of SIM, like you presented earlier, there are different advantages that using SIMs can have. Well, how about the disadvantages? Are there any disadvantages to using this particular intervention?
Siguro sa disadvantage, gaya po ng na-mention kanina ng isang nag-question, no, na additional task for teachers. Kasi separate siya from the module. It's an additional task na gagawin ng teacher para makapag-provide ng intervention. Isa yun sa disadvantage dahil kailangan mo talagang paghandaan, kailangan mong i-properly plan yung mga activities. Kaya yan, isa yan sa disadvantage. Then you need to print it for your learners kasi it is intended for individualized instruction. So additional printing cost pwede. Although pwede mo rin naman siyang gawing interactive na soft copy ang ibigay sa learners. Pero yun po siguro, no, yung talagang additional task siya. Pero once po na nagamay mo na yung paggawa ng SIM. Kasi I started writing SIM since 2009. And then sa lahat po siguro ng mga awards na mga natanggap ko, yan po ay related sa aking pagiging author ng SIM. So kung makikita mo po, although additional task siya para sa teacher, pero pag ginawa mo naman siya para talaga sa learners mo, super ganda ng feeling. Tsaka darating rin ang panahon na ma-recognize yung ating mga efforts. So yun nga lang po, no? Medyo mahirap pero pag ginawa mo siya with your wholeheartedly or with passion, talagang fulfilling po. Yun po.
So I think that's something naman na as educators we can relate to, no, that even though additional task siya, yes, it's additional efforts on our part to produce these materials, pero para nga sa students, for our students, for their benefit then, and then when we see na they are really learning from those materials, it's very rewarding already for us. So even though medyo extra work siya for us, it pays off din naman because we know that our students are really benefiting from them. Okay. Something a little bit related to that. Another question that we have from Manolita Ramos Oligo. They ask: Are Sims ready-made or are they created by teachers themselves? And is there subsidy for creating Sims?
Okay, medyo ilang tanong po yun, parang tatlong tanong yun, ano? Isa-isahin po natin. Sim made, ano ba yun, meron bang ready-made? So in our case po, sa school namin, ready-made na po siya kasi sabi ko nga, ginawa na namin lahat ng competencies ng SIM. So pwede siyang ready-made na para once na needed siya ng student, ready ka na para magbigay ng intervention to learners. Pero para po sa hindi pa nakagawa ng SIM, so pwede na po nating umpisahan, no, ang paggawa ng SIM. Yan po. As to, ano pa yun? Is there a subsidy? Unfortunately, wala pong subsidy, ano? Oo, kasi sa case po namin, personal po yung aming expenses para sa paggawa ng SIM, like sa printing, sa binding ng mga materials. So, sometimes personal po yan. Pero ang kinaganda lang po namin nagkaroon po ng search sa DOST, Search for Innovative Practice in Managing Large Classes. Kaya po yung aming mga SIM, na-reproduce po siya, funded po ng DOST, kaya po siya naging SIMATAR na. So kaya yun po, baka po pwede rin nating itap yung ating mga PTA, pwede nating itap yung ating mga external stakeholders para po tayo tulungan sa reproduction cost ng ating SIM din.
Okay, that's such a great suggestion, Dr. Vino. So we can seek the help, of course, of others to help us with maybe the production of our SIMs, especially kapag yun nga, there are cases where it would have to come at personal costs as well. And then it's good to know that we have resources na din online, like the CIMATAR, that teachers can access na lang. They don't necessarily have to create their own anymore, but they can access it if it's available online. So that's good to know, but I guess may mga topics then that are not yet online and teachers would have to create their own for those, no? Okay. There are 3 more questions that we have here. Okay, it's from RJ Apostol. How do we ensure that the learning objectives are met when we use SIMs?
Di ba po sa SIM, meron po siyang assessment card. So dun po sa result ng assessment, makikita naman po natin yung score ng bata. So, meron na ba siyang naintindihan from there? So, yun po, pwede naman po natin siyang makita doon sa result ng ating assessment.
Okay. As a follow-up question to that, Dr. Venus, by the way, kapag, for example, in the assessment card, we find that the student is still having difficulty with that particular topic, what else can we do po kaya?
Siguro kung hindi pa rin tama yung SIM, then we apply another intervention. Pwede po nating i-home visit yung bata. Pwede po natin siyang bigyan ng video. Sa amin po sa City Division, sa division po namin, we provide USB with videos na pwedeng mapanood ng bata. Yung mga DepEd TV videos, kinompile namin siya, curated with the different, naka-curate na siya with competencies, then the videos, then other materials para magamit ng bata, no, as one of the intervention na pwedeng gamitin.
Okay. So sa bagay, sabi nyo nga earlier, Dr. Venus, the Sims naman are not one size fits all, no? So we cannot guarantee na all of the time the students will be able to master it even after the Sim. So we have additional naman na materials, we have additional intervention methods as well that we can use. Okay. Next question from Nel Guzman Versosa. How can we use Sim as an innovation? Medyo challenging question to, Doc. How do we use Sim as an innovation?
Okay, actually, innovation na siya. No? Sim itself is already an innovation. No? Kasi pag sinabi nating innovation, existing concept, pero we introduce it in a new way. No? So like, meron na tayong module. Then as part ng ating innovation as teachers, so we introduce them with another material. We call it Sim, para mas matulungan ang mga bata sa pagmaster ng lesson. So actually, providing the learners with intervention material is already an innovation. Kaya nga po, yun po, sa lahat po ng, isa po yan sa DepEd, di ba? Nangangailangan tayo ng innovation. Isa siya sa malaki ang points niyan sa ranking. And pag nag-submit tayo ng mga SIM, actually, counted siya as innovation. Yan, malaking point siya pag nagpa-rank. Yan, isa lang po yan sa unintended benefit ng SIM. Pero ang pinaka-goal natin dyan ay para ma-improve ang learning ng bata.
So yung SIM themselves, so the, Sir Nel, according to Dr. Venus, the SIM itself is an innovation na. So by using the SIM, we're already innovating, no? Kasi the original form would have been the module. And then by retransforming it into the SIM, we're making it into an innovation already. Okay. Last question so far from Jenny Kiambao Mirales. Tuwing anong week po pwede magbigay ng SIM sa identified learners who need intervention? Or I guess how often can we give SIMs to our learners?
Di ba po, pag nagbigay tayo ng summative test or chapter test, then we found out that our learners failed out of, let us say, 10 items. Merong mga nakakuha ng 6, no? So by that time po, after getting the result of your summative test, then pwede mo na po siyang bigyan ng intervention para po before siya mag-proceed sa next na module or next na lesson, meron ka nang naibigay na intervention para matulungan siyang ma-master muna yung naunang competency bago mag-proceed sa next. Yun po.
Okay. So before moving on to the next topic, no, so that we can make sure that student really understands the prerequisite topic then. So I guess as soon as possible and whenever we notice na the student really needs the intervention, then we provide it already to them. So we don't wait for them na tumagal before we actually give it to them. All right. I have one more question pala, Doc. For SIMs, are they better used for individual students or as groups, for group work?
Actually, ngayon dahil po nasa comforts of their home sila, for individualized instruction po siya. Pero kung face-to-face na po tayo, pwede naman po siyang group na activity. Pero as of now, dahil nasa tayo, bawal yung face-to-face. So, individualized instruction po.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Venus. So I think that's all of our questions for now. We had a lot of questions. I hope that Dr. Venus was actually able to help everybody understand a little better and clarify on those questions that you had about the use of SIMs. I think we have one more question. Okay, from RJ Apostol. Is the use of SIM only for lessons that are difficult for students to master?
Ang pinaka-goal po talaga ng SIM, yan po, dahil po siya intervention material, yes. Ang pinaka-goal niya po is para sa mga difficult na mga lessons. So yun po. Yun po yung ang original na yan. Ang original na purpose of making the SIM is to give intervention so that learners can master the least learned ng mga competencies.
Okay. So, ang main goal po niya talaga is for mastering yung mga difficult to understand or difficult to master lessons for students, right? Pero does that mean, Doc, that for other topics, for example, yung medyo madaling topics, we can't make sims for them, or can we still make sims for them?
Pwede naman po siyang gawan kasi hindi naman po lahat ng bata parehas yung pag understand sa topic. Kahit po yung ibang bata, kahit easy lang po yung topic para sa iba, but to other learners, mahirap po yan. Kaya po kung pwede nating gawan, kaya nga po yung ginawa namin sa school namin, lahat po ginawa namin para once na may bata na mahirapan sa topic na yan, so we give them SIM. Kasi iba-iba naman po talaga yung level ng ating mga learners.
That's true. Our students have different levels of understanding, no? So we cannot say na lahat ng student madadalian sa topic kahit na maybe for the majority it's easy, pero it's not a guarantee. So for any topic we can make, or for any, I guess, skill or competency, we can make a sim for it. Okay. We had another question earlier from Christy. Okay, I think there was a question earlier about if there's a need for copyright and language validation. Here we go. Ayan. Kailangan po ba muna mag-undergo ng content, language, and copyright validation ang SIM?
Sa standards po ng LRMDS, yes po, bago po natin yan gamitin sa ating learners, dapat po ay patingnan po natin yan sa ating mga master teachers para po ma-check kung meron po mga errors. So, yes, mas advisable po na ipa-validate po muna natin bago natin siya gamitin sa learners.
All right. So just like the rest of our learning materials and teaching materials, no, before we actually provide it or give it to our students, we have to make sure that everything, the content, the language is appropriate and that it's good for use in our topics. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Venus. We have, I think there was another question earlier, or maybe we were able to address it already. Okay. So again, thank you so much, Dr. Venus, for answering our questions and for imparting knowledge to us about the different, about SIMS and how we can use it to help our students with any competencies or maybe skills that they're having difficulty with. We definitely have learned a lot from what you were able to share with us today. So we'll be ending our open forum here. For those of you who may have any further questions, you can forward them to us at Tag Pros Education on our Facebook page, and we will be trying our best to give you the answers you speak from our speaker. So we'll get in touch with Dr. Venus if there's a question that you have that would like to be addressed. So just reach out to us through the Facebook page, the Tag Pros Education Facebook page. All right. So once again, thank you, Dr. Venus, for spending your Saturday with us, for spending your time with us and giving us all this information that we can use. I hope that our teachers, our educators who are able to tune in today can really make use of all of the things we've learned today to improve on the way we provide education to our students and be able to provide better intervention to them as well, especially those who may be struggling with certain topics or skills. Okay, so for our audience, please make sure to tell us what you thought about our webinar workshop today in the evaluation form that we will be posting. So the link will be presented on the screen and in our comment section. Please make sure to answer the evaluation form before our deadline next Friday at 11:59 p.m. You have 1 week to answer the evaluation form in order for you to be able to claim your e-certificate for our webinar workshop today. So again, you have 1 week. So best to answer it now while you can so that you do not forget. Okay, so our evaluation form can be found at www.tagpros.org. It is right there on our screen and is also posted in the comments section. Okay, again, don't forget so that you can claim your e-certificate for today's webinar workshop. So we are ending our workshop here today. I hope that everybody enjoyed this time. Everybody felt that this was a great use of our Saturday. Definitely a great learning experience, a great learning opportunity for all of us educators, and a great way as well for us to improve on our teaching and our ability to help our students. Okay, so please join us again next week. I'm looking forward to seeing you all again next week for our webinar workshop, where we will be joined by one of our pioneers, Miss Ivy Enaje, and she will be talking about managing teacher burnout and stress, a very interesting topic. So I'm sure a lot of us at this point, having been teaching online for maybe a year or two now, definitely we've been experiencing some teacher burnout and stress. So we are very happy to welcome Miss Ivy Enaje next Saturday for our webinar workshop, as she talks us through how we can better manage our workload, our stress levels, and our feelings of burning out. Okay, so we hope to see you then, and we hope that you'll be able to join us. Please make sure to register for that next webinar workshop. We'll be posting the link in the chat box, and you can see it also here. You'll be able to see it also on the screen. Please register at bit.ly/tagpros October webinar 4. All right? Okay, so thank you so much. As always, please keep updated with Tag Pros Education by following our official social media pages. Again, we are always live here on Facebook, and we also stream on YouTube. Please make sure to also invite your family and friends to join us so that we can all learn together. Again, I'm Celine Estaris. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I'll see you all again next week. Bye-bye.
As we transition to the new normal, we have left others behind. We need to reimagine and redesign our educational system. With the collective effort of schools, sponsors, and TagPro's learning management system, and core of passionate teachers, we can deliver free education and champion the cause of our students. Together, we would be able to teach, inspire, and serve, because Tag Bros believes that education is a right all children deserve.